Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats. Football.
I got it.
Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats. Football. Wildcats. Football.
Welcome to the Married with Picks podcast, season 5, episode 11, week 11. All right, Steve, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so this week we have 4 teams on bye: the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Giants, and the Bucs. Our first game is the Jags at the Lions. This opened at Lions -4. It is at Lions -13.5. And despite that, 80+% of the money is still on the Lions. So the Jaguars will be starting Mac Jones again this week.
That's your dog.
No, that's your dog.
Let the dogs out.
So it's a big line. Jaguars are pretty bad, especially with Mac Jones at quarterback. I don't necessarily think you have to be afraid of this big line, but it is a big line. I'm going to side with the Lions. I would probably put this in a teaser, though, with another game to be safe.
I mean, it opened at 4, right? Opened up 4 and it's at 13.5. That's insane. I mean, did they think that Trevor Lawrence was going to come back? And does he make that much of a difference over Mac Jones? I mean, I know he's better, but is he really better this season?
I don't know.
I mean,
it seems like they didn't have Mac Jones do too much last week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you got to limit him before he turns the ball over a lot, right? You don't want to ask him to throw the ball 40 times a game.
Yeah, well, last week they played the Vikings, so that was Brian Flores. It was probably a good strategy. But I don't know that it's any better this week.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everybody loves the Lions. I love the Lions, right? They're 13.5 point favorites, so I don't know how you can lay that many points in any game. Like,
so does that mean you're taking the Jags?
Yeah, I'm taking the Jags here.
All right. Have
Hold
fun
your
with that.
nose and take the Jags. What are you taking? Nobody?
Well, like I said, I mean, I don't know that you have to be afraid of the big line. It is a big line, though. So I would put it, I think I already did put it in a teaser with another game or two.
I mean, it's the only thing to keep in mind is, there's clearly a big difference in Jared Goff playing home versus away. He threw 5 interceptions last week, so but that was on the road. So that's the only thing that worries me is that they're home. The Jags don't expound a lot of confidence, but ETN looks like he's rounding back to health.
Now, ETN sucks, and Tank Bigsby is out.
Yeah.
So you can't run on the Lions anyway.
You don't got to win. You just got to cover. I'm going to take I'm going to take the Jags. Sorry.
All right.
Started to say the Lions.
Next game is the Packers at the Bears. This opened at Bears -1. It is now Packers -5.5. This is a division game. This was Aaron Rodgers towards the end of his time with the Packers announced that he owns the Bears. He and the Packers did and do own the Bears. Bears' last win against the Packers was December 16th of 2018, and there was a long line of losses before that. The Bears obviously have a bit of drama going on, so they did fire their offensive coordinator. I don't know that that has solved their problems. There's been some pretty strange rumors that veteran players were asking for Caleb Williams to be benched in favor of Tyson Bagent, and then it came out that apparently it was Tyson Bagent's dad who was behind all this. So I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if there's any type of bounce from the Bears in this game because they did get the offensive coordinator out. They are going to be without 2 of their tackles this week, have already been ruled out. There is a third guy on the injury report. I did not write down their names. Jordan Love did win both his matchups against the Bears last year, 38-20. and 17-9. And that was in week 18. And I'm not 100% sure. I think the Packers did need the win in that game to get in the playoffs, but I'm not 100%. The Packers should have an advantage in the trenches on both sides of the ball. They are coming off their bye, so I am taking the Packers.
I'm going to take the Packers, too. It's just too much turmoil, like you said. Eberflus, the coach of Chicago, looks like he's, lived to coach another day. But, it looks like with them firing the offensive coordinator, it's just a scapegoat at this point.
And he hasn't done anything to help his cause because, some of the stuff that he said immediately after last week was just very, vague and wishy-washy.
Where's he coming from? Alabama? I'm sure he wishes he was back there.
And it just, I just don't think he's a good coach. So.
Some guys you can just tell, when they start.
And I think with all the, you kind of have to control the situation. Don't let the situation control the team. And I don't think he's good at doing that.
Oh, yeah, exactly. He looks like he's falling prey to the bad situation that they're in there, and he's just adding fuel to the fire. In this situation, a good coach has just got to back his players and have confidence and exude confidence to the media about his players, and that's not what Eberflus is doing at this point. I don't know how you can take the Bears here with the long streak of losses that they've had against the Packers. And the Packers are, I think this is the area of the season, we're getting to late November and December where Green Bay appears to be a playoff team, but they have not looked as good over the last couple of weeks. So this is where I think it's a get-right game for Green Bay, and they try to propel off this win towards the playoffs playing a better brand of football. So I'll take Green Bay as well, as long as it stays under a touchdown. Right now it's at 5.5. It did open at Bears -1, right?
Yeah. All right. So next game is the Rams at the Patriots. This opened at Rams -4. It is at Rams -4.5. So this one's kind of tough for me because I have not been impressed by the Rams other than their game against the Vikings. They were bad when they played the Raiders. The Raiders pretty much gave them that game. The Seahawks kind of handed them that game. And they couldn't get much done against the Dolphins last week. We saw the Dolphins defensive line get through to Stafford quite a few times last week. The Patriots had done that to the Bears the week prior to. That might have been due to the Bears offensive line injuries, though. And I also don't ever really trust Sean McVay to hold a lead because he definitely will take his foot off the gas. He is not the guy that goes for it on 4th down or goes for 2. It does seem like everybody is on the Rams, and I don't necessarily want to take the Patriots, but if you put a gun to my head, that's what I would do.
I feel like this is a game where, based off of them, not playing well Monday night and losing to Miami, you say the money's on the Rams, but I feel like people don't feel good about the Rams at this point. I think this is a get-right game for them against the Patriots because the Patriots are just not that good. They're 1-3 at home. I just think this is a bad spot for the Patriots to be playing the Rams because the Rams feel like, you get Puka Nacua back after a while. Then he was hurt and he came back last week, but they kind of looked off, I think this is a game where Stafford's going to look a lot better than he did on Monday night against Miami, and he can go into New England and put some numbers up. I expect a big game out of the Rams and Stafford. Okay. I'll take the Rams for sure.
All right. Next game is the Browns at the Saints. This opened at Browns -2. It's actually shifted to Saints -1.5, and I'm not really sure why that would be. The Saints did get their win last week over the Falcons, but the Falcons did miss. But then a lot of missed kicks lately. So the Falcons kicker had missed 2 or 3 field goals last week. The Falcons don't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, so I think the Browns will get more pressure on Carr. He is still without any real receivers, and they seem like they're still playing that deep ball or bust kind of offense, which they have no concept that there's you can throw a ball like 10 yards. You don't have to throw it 30 yards. So without his regular receivers, I don't know that that's going to work well against the Browns. This is a Jameis Winston revenge game. And obviously he was only in New Orleans for a couple years as a backup primarily. But I did hear on the radio that he took the backup role when Drew Brees was still there with the expectation that he would be the starter when Brees retired. And then that's when Taysom Hill kind of came in the mix. And then they trade for Derek Carr. So maybe he does have some revenge there. I'm going to take the Browns. They are coming off their bye here as well. And this is one where 64% of the bets are on the Saints, but 65% of the money is on the Browns.
I think people look a lot at what the Saints did last week to get the win and think that they're going to cruise on the Browns.
The public is easily fooled, is what you're saying?
Yeah, well, I think this is a Brown spot for the reasons that you just said. I mean, you took the words out of my mouth with this being a revenge game or revenge game for Jameis Winston, because he was in the Saints for a while and he was eating W. He was trying to eat W's.
Is that where he ate a W, or was that with the Bucs?
He's trying to eat W's. I might have been for the Bucs, but I think it was for the Saints.
Gotcha.
But I think this is a game where, especially like you said, he's coming off the bye. Jameis is really going to try hard to get a win here. I don't see either team scoring over 20 points. I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair, and the Browns pull it out in the end.
All right, next game is the Vikings at the Titans. Vikings open at -1 favorites. They're at Vikings -5.5. Now, I feel like this game is very much going to go like last week. So I don't know how well the Titans are going to do against Brian Flores, but I also don't know how well Sam Darnold is going to do, period. Last week, he threw 3 interceptions, all in the red zone. I think the Vikings scored, like 12 points, and it was 4 field goals.
Yeah, 12-7.
The Jags only put up 7 points. I don't trust Darnold, but I don't trust Will Levis against the Flores defense more. So I have to go back to the well and take the Vikings here.
I just can't take the mayonnaise man, Will Levis.
I was going to ask who the mayonnaise man was.
Yeah,
Figured it out.
Seeing that guy in that commercial has just kind of jaded me off of his ability. But just analyzing this game, I think that, the Vikings are going to look to get the offense back on track based off of not being able to put the ball in the end zone last week.
Yeah, I don't trust Darnold at all, though.
They played Jacksonville. So I do. I just think he's going to be up and down. That's what he is. He's going to be a little inconsistent, and he's been down after the hot start. So at some point, I think he's going to catch fire again, and this is a good spot to do it against the Titans. I'll take the Vikings.
All right. Next game is the Colts at the Jets. Jets opened at -4 point favorites. They are at 3.5. Now, the NFL took this game out of prime time. Thank you, NFL. We've seen enough of the Jets. These are 2 teams, obviously, that have not lived up to expectations this year. And despite saying that Joe Flacco was going to be the starter going forward, the Colts have reversed course, and they are going back to Richardson. In this matchup, it may actually be better. The Jets cannot stop the run, and they have trouble defending the big plays, and that is kind of Anthony Richardson's game. They seem to run the ball more with Jonathan Taylor when Richardson is at quarterback. The Jets obviously got blown out by the Cardinals last week, and apparently they had like 3 special padded practices focused on tackling this week. I don't know how the team responds to something like that. I assume maybe they'll try a little bit harder so they don't have to have extra practices next week. I don't know. And then one interesting point, and I'd want to get your opinion. I don't know if you've heard this, but so the Chiefs, which we'll get to them, Harrison Butker went to the IR. The Chiefs picked up Spencer Schrader, who was the guy that was kicking for the Jets when they put Zerline on IR. He was their kicker last week. He scored their only points that they scored in that game. And somehow the Chiefs are able to vulture him off the Jets practice squad. Why did the Jets have this guy on the practice squad? Like, he was on the active roster last week because he played in the game. And so then they put him on the practice squad. Why didn't they keep him on the active roster? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't know specifically about their situation, but I'm going to hypothesize that they're playing games with their roster because they have 53 guys that they want on the roster, and they don't want to lose that last guy, whoever it is, that's not the kicker. So they put him back on the practice squad because of that 53rd guy not wanting to give him up. So maybe it's a situation where they got right up against to game time, right? And then they deactivate a guy for injury reasons, which allows them to bring a guy up from the practice squad, and they're trying to do the same thing again.
But I just think this is your second.
They got called out.
Kick. Yeah, exactly. It's your second kicker. There's obviously been kicking issues in the NFL this year. Like, why do you take the chance? I think it's stupid.
Definitely.
So I don't think, even if the Jets win, are they really going to win by more than a field goal? I don't think so. So I'm taking the Colts.
Well, I'm not going to take the Colts because it's Anthony Richardson. Listen, it's got Jim. This has Jim Irsay written all over it. They made it look like Steichen and the team made a decision to go with Flacco going forward, kind of giving up on Richardson. Richardson's very raw, right? He hasn't had many starts in college at Florida, and he hasn't done really well other than running the ball, not necessarily passing the ball in the NFL. So it smells like Irsay made the call to get his top draft pick from 2 years ago back into the lineup. I don't trust Richardson at all, and I think this is a Jets team that should bounce back against the Colts after a horrible week last week against the Cardinals.
Are they going to bounce back though? Like, do you think that they probably just checked out at this point? Like, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast, but like, as far as like Jets fans were concerned, they were expecting Aaron Rodgers to do for them what Tom Brady did when he went to Tampa Bay. And it has been, and then he got hurt first game last year. So they had to wait an entire year. And now this is what they got. So like, I could just see the whole team being like, and that's what they did last week. Like, fuck it.
Well, here's the problem, right? The team, the last seed in the playoffs, 5-5, and the Jets are 3-7. So they're only 2 games back with 7 games to go. So there's a bunch of teams in between them and the Broncos. The Broncos are 7 and the Jets are 11. So in between here, you have Indy, who they're playing, right? So that's a huge win that they can knock them down. Then Cincy and Miami. So I think the Jets are probably thinking that if they go on a run here, that, but they got to do it now. We said this last week. They got to go now. But the big difference here is they're not going all the way to the West Coast to play Arizona, right? They're going to be at home. Colts are a dome team coming out, and it's going to be a little brisk. Northeast weather. It's going to be in the 60s, a little warmer than it has been all week, down in the 50s. But still, I think this is an area where Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to throw the ball around the field a little bit. And don't forget, they do have Adams, who they traded for,
who is
and
sick,
Wilson,
and has a wrist injury or something now all of a sudden too.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's going to be a permanent wrist injury if they lose this game. So this definitely smells like desperation for the Jets, but lucky for them, the Colts are the one coming to town, and they got Joe Flacco on the bench. What I would be concerned about is a halftime switch.
Well, honestly, like, since week 1, the Jets have been gashed on the ground. So to me, the Colts coming in with Richardson at quarterback is a really bad matchup for them.
Plus, you got Jonathan Taylor.
Exactly.
So it could be tough for them, but I think the Jets pull this one out and probably win this one pretty handily.
I don't know. We'll see. All right.
I don't like the Colts on the road.
I'm done with New York teams. Done with them both, because I've given the Giants a lot of opportunities and they've let me down every week too. So,
well, the good thing about the Giants is they can't lose this week.
I mean, yeah, exactly. But we were both on the Jets last week, and that game was just trash.
Yeah, when they said that Kyler Murray had maybe one of the best games of his career.
So, all right. Next game is the Raiders at the Dolphins. This open at -6 in favor of the Dolphins. It's at -7. So we have the Raiders coming off the bye. Gardner Minshew is going to start this game. The Raiders also did fire their offensive coordinator. So they have Scott Turner as the new play caller. The Raiders do have some offensive line injuries. Their center, Nate Hobbs, and guard, Cody Whitehair, have already been ruled out. Tyreek Hill has this wrist injury thing going on, which he played up last week, but now this week he's going to play. And apparently he's blaming the cops for this wrist injury from week 1. I don't know with these offensive line. We saw the Dolphins really get through to Stafford last week. If the Raiders have injuries on their offensive line, then they might be able to get to Minshew. I don't know that the Dolphins really deserve to be 7-point favorites, though. So that's kind of my problem with that. I do think probably the Dolphins are the right side, but I don't know if I want to take them at 7.
I think the Raiders are just cooked, and Gardner Minshew is coming into the season. I was hoping that he could do something here for the Raiders, but obviously he's not the answer to their prayers. Doesn't seem like
they like him at all.
No, exactly. And I don't know why they're giving him another shot to play quarterback. So I'll take the Dolphins -7. They're 1-3, so be careful. They're 1-3 at home. But again, this is another team that you're expecting big things out of when the season started. Tua should continue to gain confidence after coming back from the concussion. And I think this is a game where the opponent just stinks to high heaven. So the Dolphins should be able to roll by 10 or more.
All right. Next game is the Ravens at the Steelers. This opened at Ravens -3. It is at Ravens -3. This is a division game. The Steelers have dominated this matchup going back to 2020. Ravens only have one win in that time period. Now, tell me if you believe this, but Lamar Jackson has only played the Steelers 3 times in his entire NFL career. Do you believe that?
That's crazy. Just 3 times?
Division game, yes. So he's been sick or injured in all the other starts. He only has 3 starts. One was back in November of 2020, one in December of 2021, and the first matchup of their 2 last year in October. Steelers won all 3 matchups. Now, they are going to be without Alex Highsmith on defense, and it happened last week, and that's when I knew it was not a good week for me. Mike Williams caught the touchdown that won the game for the Steelers against Washington. I'm going to put Mike Williams in a FanDuel lineup just to reverse jinx myself so that he doesn't have a good game. Now, the one thing, and this is kind of the angle
that was the game winner, too. It wasn't just
yes, it was.
Like touchdown didn't mean anything. It was his huge.
Only target, maybe. Now, we do have, this is the Deontay Johnson revenge game for against the Steelers. There were some comments that Mike Tomlin seems like he might be getting a little full of himself at this point. But Patrick Queen is a linebacker who played for 4 years in Baltimore, and he felt disrespected that the Ravens didn't sign him. So he is already gunning for some revenge. And I think I got to take the Steelers.
What was Tomlin saying about Deontay Johnson? That guy, basically ran through a wall for him.
Well, they asked him something. He was like, are they gonna are they game planning for Deontay Johnson? And Tomlin said something like, he doesn't really show up on the film, so we're not worried about him.
Well, it's true. I mean, since he's been with the Ravens, which is only 1 game, he didn't do anything.
Right, but I mean, that was kind of like.
But also with Carolina, I mean, you have to look at the Carolina tape if you're going to see anything, and he didn't really have anybody throwing him the ball. But Deontay Johnson still has it. That's odd for Tomlin and probably a mistake. I'm sure after he said it and he had time to think about it.
I don't think so. He's a little full of himself. He's having a good time up there at the podium because he thinks he's like, the mad genius, because everybody was like, oh, about the Russell Wilson thing. And now he looks like a fucking
genius.
Yeah. And he loves it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that because I'm probably going to play Deontay Johnson in my fantasy lineup this week. Because I was a little disappointed. I thought they were going to come out firing to him, but he only had, I think, one target his first game out for the Ravens. So I'm going to take the Ravens here. I mean, I just think the Ravens are a much better team. They need to show up and win this game to, basically put their foot down as the division leader in the AFC North. It's 7-2 Pittsburgh. It's 7-3 Baltimore. So technically Pittsburgh's in first place by themselves. So
and actually, well, and I guess this makes sense, but 60% of the money is on the Steelers, but I mean, they're home dog. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll take the Ravens here. I'll give up the points. And it's tough because there's a lot of home dogs here in this lineup, and I'm going against them. So who knows what that means? It's probably not a good sign, but I'm going to take the Ravens here.
All right. Different sides of that one. All right. Next game is the Seahawks.
Is Russell Wilson really scary at this point? I mean, I know.
Well, you like Russell Wilson.
I know, but
not
it's
a
just
fan, but
I like.
I don't think the moon ball to Pickens is sustainable, but.
And I don't think that this is the right matchup.
The Ravens, you can't run on them, but you can throw on them.
Yeah.
So it might be the right matchup.
Actually, really looking forward to seeing this game. You look like you're decked out for the Ravens today.
Oh, maybe so, but I'm taking the Steelers.
Little Derrick Henry.
I should be wearing brown.
When's the Derrick Henry jersey coming?
Yellow. Huh?
When's the Baltimore Derrick Henry jersey
I'm not getting a Baltimore Derrick Henry jersey. I'm not going to get a Tennessee Derrick Henry jersey, so I'm not getting a Henry jersey now.
Get a Derrick. Well, maybe you can find one cheap.
I don't know.
You can find a Tennessee Derrick Henry jersey cheap.
Yeah, well. All right. So next game is the Seahawks at the 49ers. This opened at 49ers -9. It is down to 49ers -6.5. This is a division game as well. 49ers have won the last 6 matchups in this, and they've won them all by at least 8 points. They played back in week 6 in Seattle. 49ers won that game 36-24. The line on that game was 3.5. So I guess the line here makes sense. Now the 49ers, Nick Bosa and Trent Williams, their left tackle, are questionable. So I would definitely keep an eye on Trent Williams. And I guess, what's his name? DK Metcalf will be back in this game. He did play in the week 6 game, though. But, and it sucks because the 49ers are usually really dependable when I bet them. And they've been much of a disappointment this year. They have not lived up to the games that they normally win. But I gotta stay with them. I hope they don't let me down. 6.5. I hope they don't give up the lead, and their kicker better make the kicks this week because he missed a couple last week, and that cost us. Watch for Trent Williams because he is big.
Yeah, I think, this is a game where it's a division matchup. It's tight. The line started at 9, down to 6.5. I'm going to go Seattle here. I know they're on the road going to San Francisco, but it's a division matchup. It should be a tight game.
They are coming off the bye, but they look like shit when they play the Rams.
Yeah, hopefully they can turn it around here, especially with a lot of the teams look like when they're coming off the bye, they have that extra practice is really helping them kind of get their act together.
And somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody just up and retired on them. I think it was an offensive lineman.
Well, Seattle's 4-5. Right, they're tied with the Rams at 4-5, and San Fran's 5-4. So a loss here for the Niners will bring them into a tie with Seattle in second place. And depending on how Arizona does,
they're not playing this week.
Yeah, they're not. They're not playing this week, so there's no way that if San Fran loses.
But what if San Fran wins? Do they go to first?
Yeah, they will, because they would be 6-4, tied with the Cardinals.
Okay.
So the only difference is that the Cardinals haven't had their bye week, obviously, yet. So they have that extra game in there. So that would bring them to a tie, and Seattle would pretty much...
Very close division over there.
Yeah, Seattle at 4-6. I mean, they're not out of it, but if they lost the game, but pretty much in last place, you're going to have to jump the Rams, the Niners, and the Cardinals to to get a
Well, the
bid.
Seahawks have lost a lot of the division games, though, right? They lost to San Fran already. They lost to the Rams.
Yeah. Well, the thing here is that, Seattle, they do have a 2-1 record on the road. So they've had some success. They're 0-2 in the division, so that's tough, and 1-4 in the conference. So Seattle hopefully will be able to power off the bye into some high octane offense. The key here is that DJ Metcalf's back, and did I say DJ? DK Metcalf is back and should really add a spark to the offense.
I don't know. All right. Next game. Falcons at Broncos. Opened Falcons -3. It is shifted to Broncos -2.5. This is the second road game for the Falcons. They have no pass rush whatsoever. And Bo Nix, since week 6, with a clean pocket, he is 4th in quarterback rating. The Broncos should have an advantage in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I guess that's all I got on this one. But I'm going with the Broncos.
I'm going the other side. I'm going on the Falcons. I'll take the points. I think it's going to be a tight game. And right now it's at 2.5. Hopefully it goes back up to 3. And I like the Falcons getting 3 points or 2.5 against the Broncos.
Kirk Cousins and Mile High.
Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins is going to just keep getting stronger. We should see some big games from him before the season's
They're
over.
going to be coming for him. All right, next game is the Chiefs at the Bills. Bills open at -1 and is at Bills -2.5. So obviously we have stats as Mahomes as an underdog. Now, if I told you that these teams played 6 times in the Mahomes-Allen era, how many games do you think the Bills have won?
0.
No. So, Bills have won all 3 games that they played in the regular season. The Chiefs have won all 3 games that they've played in the playoffs.
Wow.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because I was kind of on the same page with you. Now, the Bills have a lot of injuries. Wide receiver Keon Coleman has already been ruled out. Dalton Kincaid has already been ruled out. And Amari Cooper is still questionable with this wrist. I really think maybe the Bills should have tried to get DeAndre Hopkins and not Amari Cooper. Just saying.
Does Jason Kelsey show back up and jump out of the suite with his shirt off?
Oh, God. Probably.
His priority is Monday, so he might be there on Sunday.
Now, I already mentioned the kickers. The Chiefs kicker is on IR, so they did get Spencer Schrader off the Jets practice squad. The Chiefs left tackle Wayne Morris left the game last week, but he was a full participant at practice today, so that might not be a concern. I think it's probably a 3-point game. I'm going to take the Chiefs. Although 80% of the money is on the Chiefs. So maybe it's a Bills win, but I don't know if I feel good taking the Bills -2.5 with all these injuries. Yeah, I'm going to take the Chiefs.
I'm going to take the Bills. And I'm going to go a step further just for the long term. I'm going to show you that this could be Bills representing the Super Bowl this year. I think when they're not necessarily expecting it, they're not necessarily the number 1 seed.
They save it for the playoffs.
Well, I don't think they need to save anything. I think they need to go out there and stick it to Kansas City. Kansas City is in that situation where they're undefeated, right? But they keep winning by the skin of their teeth in these tight games. Especially last week, they definitely should have lost. So
that was unbelievable.
Coming into
how unbelievable was that?
That was unbelievable. That was so unbelievable.
But how does that happen?
I don't know.
I mean, Denver is poised to win this game and they block the fucking field goal.
Yeah, well.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. How many times have you been watching a game where the team has the opportunity to win on a field goal and you're like, well, the only shot is that it gets blocked, and it never fucking gets blocked, and it's the fucking Chiefs and it gets blocked.
Yep. Well, Chiefs are blessed, but I think it all ends this week.
It's crazy.
Bills are down. It's -2.5 right now. Can I talk for a second? Yeah. It's -2.5 right now. So as long as it stays under that 3, I think it's an obvious Bills cover.
I think it would be great. I don't want the Chiefs to be undefeated, but I do really think that the NFL wants them to win the 3rd Super Bowl. I really do. So I think it's almost like a foregone conclusion. There's going to be a blocked field goal at the end of that one. All right. Next game is the Bengals at the Chargers. It opened at Bengals -2. It's at Chargers -1.5. I don't really have a strong take on this game. Chargers have a good defense. Bengals are pretty bad on defense. It does sound like T. Higgins will be back finally if he makes it through the game. That will certainly help. Bengals, we say this every week. They need the win.
Trying to fix my computer. Trying to fix my computer the German way.
I think that's gonna. I thought you were trying to kill a gnat or something. Oh God. Okay.
It's starting to act wonky.
So I mean, I would probably lean Bengals, but it is surprisingly because I don't know what the Bengals. You can't tell me the Bengals record versus the Chargers record. The Chargers definitely have a better record. I guess the Chargers just aren't getting a lot of respect. But the money is heavily on the Bengals here. So that worries me a little bit. And this is the Sunday night game.
Yeah, I like the Bengals here. I think that a lot of the action is going to be on the Chargers. Harbaugh has a lot of people, getting behind the Chargers. But Bengals here on the road. -1.5 for the Chargers. I think you take the points here on the Bengals and write it out.
Did the Bengals play last week or they were on a bye last week? Who did they play last week?
I think they're on a bye.
No, they weren't. Bengals. I can't find them.
I can't help you.
I don't see them. No. Well, I guess if you don't remember, they probably lost. All right. Next game is the Monday night game.
The Thursday game?
Oh, that must have been what it was.
Right, because didn't Chase have a big game?
Yes, that's right. Oh, against the Ravens. And they lost because they went for 2. Okay. Final game is the Monday night game. Texans at Cowboys. Open at Cowboys -3. It's at Texans -7.5. Obviously, Cowboys have been pretty bad on the season to begin with. Without Dak Prescott, they really couldn't do anything against you guys last week. They only had, I think, like 46 passing yards the entire game. I don't like that this is the Monday night game because I'm sure that all the money is going to be on the Texans. It could be a nice get-right spot for them as well after the tough loss that they had to the Lions last week. I assume Nico Collins will be back, but I don't know that it matters that much. I already did put this in a teaser too, just to be safe. But right now, 68% of the bets, 92% of the money is on the Texans.
I want to take the Cowboys here just because it's so many, they're at home on Monday night. They're getting 7.5, but I don't know how you can take the Cowboys. I think the Eagles just took their heart. And if you take a look at teams after they play the Eagles, especially when they lose, they don't do well.
Oh, God.
So I'm going to take the Texans here, even if it's at 7.5. I'll take the hook. I might, bet it down to 7 and pay the odds, but because I just don't like 7.5 as the number. But I don't know how you can take the Cowboys and feel good about yourself. I like the Texans here.
Yeah. All right. Same side of that one. All right. So that'll do it for us for week 11. If you're watching, like, subscribe, and we will see you back here next week. Peace out.
It's the sport of kings, better than diamond rings.
Peace.